I'm going to read you a small passage from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I hope you enjoy it, because I did. Death is such as generation is, a mystery of nature, a composition out of the same elements and a decomposition into the same, and altogether not a thing of which any man should be ashamed. For it is not contrary to the nature of a reasonable animal, and not contrary to the reason of our constitution. So what he is basically saying is to not be ashamed of death, because dying is a part of nature and it is a completely normal thing. And the implication of that statement is to not to be ashamed of that which is in a sense normal. Because to be normal, or rather to be a part of something bigger, or rather to have something in common with other fellow men, is something to be proud of, and it is not something to be ashamed of. And going back to, dying, it is a very, very, very scary thought, especially to those of us who are older and, nearing our own demise in a sense. The funny thing is, dying is not really our end, in the sense that it's not a demise, it's not that everything is going to be over. And I'm not saying that there's going to be an afterlife or that we are going to be reincarnated. I'm not trying to say that at all. Maybe they do exist. Maybe that's actually how it works. I'm not sure. I don't know. I haven't died before, so I don't know. But rather, what I am trying to say is that dying is not a bad thing. It's not, quote-unquote, the demise, as I have said previously. Rather, it's just something that will complete life. So the way I see it, dying is what completes life. So, you're born and then you experience life. Perhaps you might have an extraordinary life, or perhaps you might have a not so extraordinary life where you have a lot of challenges. However, and then, after you experience all of that, you die. And most people think dying is the worst thing that can happen, because dying is not a very fruitful experience, I assume. It's not really a pleasant experience. However, in a sense, death is what gives our life meaning. Because if we weren't to die, then would we have any sense of urgency to do everything in our life? I don't believe that we would, because imagine if we were immortal, we were never capable of dying, whether it be out of starvation, whether it be out of dehydration, whether it be out of old age, we would never die. Then if we were to never die, would we have any sense of urgency to carry out our purpose, our missions and objectives, to be a good friend, to be a good fellow citizen to other men? I don't think we would. Because that sense of urgency, that real fear of death is what gives us that urgency to be a good citizen, to be a good person, to do things urgently, to do things in a timely manner, to not waste our time. I don't think that's a bad thing. So in a way, dying is what gives our life meaning. And when we die, what happens is we realize our meaning, because we complete our own life. So once we complete our life, we realize the true meaning of life. It's kind of like a very symbolic way of saying what I said multiple times before, and that is that dying gives us meaning. So if death gives us meaning, then the act of death would basically help us realize that meaning completely. Because when we are living, we only realize a certain aspect of it. We only realize basically half of the entire equation. And when we die, we realize the other half. And I think that's why in a lot of cultures, People think there's an afterlife after death. People think there's reincarnation. People think there's something. Dying is an act of God or something like that. In a lot of cultures, in a lot of religions, there's something like that. And I'm not saying it's true or not. I don't know. Like I said, I have died, so I don't know. But it's very interesting that, all throughout human history, most people believe that you realize some kind of intelligence or enlightenment or supernatural capabilities, or you go to someplace special after dying. The way I see it, it's just a metaphor for saying that you realize the actuality of life, in the sense you realize the true meaning of life. Because you become quote unquote complete. And that's the way I see it. So why live life in accordance to escapism? Because a lot of people try to escape life. They try to escape their fears. They try to escape all of that. And that's the same with death. A lot of people try to escape the fact that they're going to die by, I honestly don't know. Well, I do know. They try to, do drugs, do all sorts of things, social media addiction and all of that. And I understand, and even I do that to some extent. It's completely normal for any rational human being to escape from time to time. However, if you are going to escape from the fears of life, that by doing so allows you to not live life to the full extent, then at least escape thyself, or at least what Marcus Aurelius would say, escape thyself to your own soul, so that when you are ready to come back, you have fully reached tranquility from within thyself. Because in that way, when you do come back, you are fully capable of tackling the reality that is, because you have grown stronger. Because when you think about it, most of our suffering is a result of our own perception. So Marcus Aurelius would say that life is opinion. The opinions that you have, that's what filter out, that's what create the life, that the worrisome, that the stress and all of that. It's all of the opinions that you have. So if you want to get really scientific and psychological, let's say it's the psychology, the subconscious bias, the subconscious opinions and the subconscious part of you that's causing all of that worry and stress. So what if when you are feeling tired, when you are feeling restless, when you are feeling very fearful, instead of escaping into all of these external materialistic places like social media or drugs or anything like that, what if you escape into your own soul and to, in a scientific, psychological sense, what if you escape into yourself, into your basically subconscious mind, and basically let yourself rest? Because if your soul is responsible for creating all of this stress, then it's also responsible for creating all of the pleasures and peace and tranquility of life. And tranquility is nothing more than the simple ordering of the mind. If you order your mind perfectly, efficiently, simply, and justly, then peace would just be a byproduct of that process. So when times are tough, then the most simplest thing that any man can do, and that any man has readily available to them, because it is a part of them, it is to just escape into thy own soul and to order your mind simply and justly. And in the attempt of doing that, you have already gained more strength, and you have already gained more peace and tranquility. And it is not something that you should be ashamed of doing, because dying is a part of nature, And it is completely normal for any rational human being to feel fear, because feeling fear is also a part of nature. And to escape, provided that you escape justly and morally, and you escape in a way in which you become stronger, it is not something that you should be ashamed of. And if you escape into thy own soul, into your own soul, so that you can come out of it stronger to tackle reality, then it is not something that you should be ashamed of. Many people say that escapism is bad, left, right, and center. So many people say that, but I disagree. It's only quote unquote bad if you escape in ways that are not useful for you or your loved ones or society at large. But if you escape in ways you find useful, that are useful to your friends and family, and that's useful for society because it helps you become stronger as a person, then go for it. There's nothing wrong with it, and you should not be ashamed. Anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. See ya.